Sometimes you don't feel like playing a video game with an intense and time-consuming story. Or maybe it's not that you don't feel like it, but that you just don't have time for it because you're a parent, goddammit, and you have shit you have to do. I think of the amount of cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 4 and it makes me wonder if I'll ever be able to play through it again. Not while I'm a parent of young children, that's for sure. Can you imagine telling your wife you'll take your kids to school just as soon as Snake kills himself in the final cutscene? Jesus, you'd be there for 45 minutes. Enter the video game genre roguelite. These are games that aren't conventional in the narrative or gameplay sense. In roguelites, you die and you die often, losing all your weapons and starting back at the first level. However, you don't usually lose your progress. You get to keep upgrades you earn. It's a much tighter gaming experience that can be enjoyed in bite-sized chunks, and one wonders if the whole genre was invented for the time poor. Roguelites allow you to dip in and out when you want to. There are a variety of different FPS roguelites available, and a new one for Switch 2, the first one that I've ever played, is Deadzone Rogue. At this point, I want to let everyone know that I'm reviewing the single-player experience of Deadzone Rogue on Nintendo Switch 2. The game looks like it has robust multiplayer, but I don't swing that way. I experimented with playing multiplayer Call of Duty in my youth, but now I pretty much exclusively only play single-player games. Deadzone Rogue's story isn't obviously told, and this is probably because of the nature of the roguelite beast. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, in order to write about the story I had to go and look it up. It's not laid out for you in a way that is memorable. Basically, a mysterious event has caused the space station ISSX's neural computer to go haywire, and you play someone who wakes up and is tasked with restoring power by clearing the space station of rogue AI and eventually strange biological entities. As I said, it's not really outlined clearly, but it doesn't need to be. This is all about getting straight into the action, blasting robots and getting upgrades that make blasting robots more efficient and fun. You do unlock more of the mystery as you go along, and the story is actually pretty interesting if you're into science fiction. The atmosphere and overall mood of the game, though, is about clearing levels by killing stuff and collecting upgrades along the way. You don't get bogged down by the story, and this might actually be refreshing for some players. For those that are looking for narrative richness and character development, you're not going to find much here. From a gameplay standpoint, Deadzone Rogue shines on the Nintendo Switch 2. The frame rate rests at a buttery smooth 40 frames per second, and you really feel the joy of this as you run around the darkened space station shooting robots. This is a great feeling game for the Switch 2, and you don't really notice that the graphics and frame rate have been sacrificed just to get it to run on the portable. The guns feel satisfying to shoot, which adds to making you feel like a badass. Even the pistol feels cool to shoot, and I couldn't help John Wicking through multiple levels with just the pistol. You get to choose from a typical roster of FPS weapons, including assault rifles, shotguns, and sniper rifles. There are even burst assault rifles that are better at medium range. All the guns feel satisfying to shoot, although the shotgun doesn't have the same punch as some of the legendary shotguns in gaming. When I shoot an enemy with a shotgun, I expect the enemy to be thrown down to the ground with velocity, as though I'm some kind of god, and this game just doesn't hit it. The grenades are pretty standard. They are not noticeably bad, but they are also nothing to write home about. At the end of each level, you get to choose between 3 upgrades that give you a boost in certain gameplay areas. One upgrade will increase the blast radius of a grenade, and another will give you a higher chance of getting a crit if you are nearly out of ammo. Fun stuff like that. The gameplay loop is satisfying and fast, and while I feel it does get a little repetitive, it took a while for this repetitiveness to become an issue for me. I've seen some people give this game grief about the level design, and I get it, the levels do look very samey. If you were playing this game on Xbox or PlayStation, you might get frustrated by how narrow and box-like the levels are, especially if you have cut your teeth on open-world games like Far Cry, or even just shooters with bigger open levels, like Halo or Half-Life 2. But, as an older gamer, I think the correct term is boomer gamer, this didn't bother me so much. The environments are not more boxy than a game like Doom 3, which is an old game but one that utilised its environment well to achieve what it needed to achieve, something that Deadzone Rogue does as well. The leveling and skill trees within the game are complex enough for hardcore players, but you don't need to spend a lot of time learning them if you don't want to. If you are the type of person that just wants to kill bad guys for a few runs, you aren't going to be held back by a complicated leveling system. But if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of things, the game encourages you to do so. The difficulty is good too. The first few stages are easy to run through, but they get progressively harder in a way that feels seamless and challenging. In terms of exploration, each room is handcrafted and then also randomised. This leads to a game with not much variety to the levels. It's not the type of game that allows you to do too much exploring. It's very much a room shooter. I don't really have time to be fucking around for secrets, but I have read that there are a variety of secret rooms in later levels of the game, so if that gets your dick hard, just know that Deadzone Rogue has you covered. The graphics are impressive for a portable experience. I've heard a lot of people say that the graphics and the art design are a little basic, and if I was playing on a traditional console, I'd be inclined to agree with them. However, I pretty much exclusively game using a handheld now, so I'm used to games not looking as good as they could on the big consoles. Criticisms that the art design is generic are valid. The levels do have that generic James Cameron Space Marine feeling, although the enemy design gets creepier the deeper you get into the game. By about the halfway point, you graduate from fighting humanoid robots to these scary looking hybrids of humans and robots, I guess I should call them cyborgs, that give off suitable Event Horizon vibes. Although this character design is interesting, it doesn't really do anything to add to the plot or atmosphere, which is disappointing. It would be nice if these design changes were hyped up a bit in-game. They are certainly scary enough to warrant it. The lighting is dark throughout, which makes the game hard to see if you are playing your Switch in rooms with lots of ambient sunlight. Ultimately though, it's important to acknowledge that the graphics and art design are not ugly or offensive, just a little bland by the standards set by other contemporary shooters. The sound design is good, sound effects for the guns and enemies are bombastic and add to making you feel like a futuristic badass. Sitting down to write about the game's music, on the other hand, made me draw a massive blank, which I guess means the music is not too noticeable. Voice acting is good and not obtrusive, which is just what you want for a game like this. You won't be dragged down by boring dialogue or lame wannabe MCU humour, which seems to be infecting every game these days. Before I finish off this review, another thing I want to mention is that the price is definitely right on this one. It is currently selling for $35 Australian on the Nintendo store right now, and I got it on special for probably half that price. So if you're looking for something new to play that's not going to require you to take out a second mortgage on your house, you could do a lot worse than Deadzone Rogue. The gunplay is tight and the gameplay loop is satisfying, even if it gets a bit repetitive after a while.
Grizzly Adams did have a beard.